calling the meeting to order at 6:30. I'd like to recognize Ellie Mayonin, Sean Murphy, and Dan Zambreski in the public. I'm gonna ask people to sign in as you come in.
There's agendas for everyone.
There are agendas on the table, thank you, Peter. And I will waive mention of the rules of procedure because you all know them. Are there additions to the agenda this evening?
I have one addition because it is time sensitive. That's the Vermont State Police annual contract, which I just got today. It was requested over almost 2 months ago. So
And it has to be signed before
it has to be
the next
signed,
meeting?
yeah, before the next meeting, because it's supposed to start on July 1st, and our next meeting's not till July 9th.
Okay, well, we can talk about that. Are there changes to the agenda order?
Yes.
Welcome home.
Laura Lawson Tucker had a prior engagement, and she will not be able to show up for her section until after 7 o'clock, so she asked if we could move her to the end of the new business section for the traffic safety in the library.
Okay. Is that it, Peter?
That is all.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 11th, 2018. I'd entertain a motion.
I so move
A second.
for acceptance.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't there. Any opposed? No. Thank
We
you.
missed you.
Ah, thank you.
Brandon, will you kindly start saying, please?
Dan Zambreski.
Anything to tell us?
Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Hello. I just come over to give you an update of what's going on. I don't know if you noticed tonight when you were coming up Center Road, you're seeing all new signs. That's through the state. There was a grant that was approved 2 years ago that they're just getting around to do it now.
Oh.
They're gonna be from the old town garage to Evans's farm and out the Hollow Road far as, where Houghton's live. There'll be all new signs
Didn't notice.
on the
That's
corners,
awesome.
warning, the regulatory warning signs and few new speed limit signs down through there, so. Our machine's supposed to be delivered tomorrow, hopefully, so.
That's exciting.
We've been working on the grants project on Bonneville Road. We've been doing a lot we found a ledge in one spot, we've been doing a lot of hammering with our hammer, so that's been working good. This roads are in pretty good shape, they got a few little bit washboards last night and we had the rain, but not bad. Other than that, I can't think of anything. I'm hoping to get my paving bids out, maybe the next meeting or sometime in July. Get my paving. We're gonna do a mile. We got a grant through the state, which was 140, you said, Peter?
144,000.
Plus what I got and some of my surplus that I had left over from last year on my paving. I plan on doing maybe almost 3 miles of road. As long as the money holds up, I'll get some figures. But on the Hollow Road, from the Weathered Hollow Bridge to the old Guilford Pool, I'm gonna do a shim, and then I'm gonna do a rubberized chip seal on top of that.
What
Because
is the
that-
ship?
Yeah.
A shim is it's gonna be what they call a leveling course. They're gonna just level the road, and then they're gonna, this rubberized chip seal is rubberized, it's
Yeah.
rubber. So 'cause that section of road always heaves and cracks,
Yes, it does.
so it's gonna give it a little more
Give.
give
Where's
to
the
it.
old Guilford Pool?
Near
The old rec,
Yard Road?
swimming pool, right here by Yard Road.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? There used to be a swimming pool there.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's where they did swimming lessons for years.
Wow. There's not much left there now.
No, through the rec, that's an insurance thing, that's why years ago, we never put the boards back in, cause if something happens, it's a liability factor, so. But other than that, that's basically about what I got. Anybody
Dan,
got
is
any-
the use of the hammer, is that your first, the crews use that
Yeah,
hammer for the first time?
Yeah, this week is the first time, yep.
Was this a
And
new
it's
piece
worked
of
well?
equipment?
Huh?
Was this on a new piece?
Yes, yeah, it was on the new backhoe.
It was on the backhoe,
Dan
Oh.
had requested the
Yeah.
hammer because of the ledge work he's gonna have
Yeah.
to do over the next.
Cool.
next
and it's been working real well, so.
That's great.
I mean, other than that, I mean, if anybody has got any, oh, and then the other project on Sweets Pond Road, I talked to Alan May this morning, who's the head of that. That's another grant we got. I'm gonna either divide it between the two contractors that bid on it, have one do maybe the upper section, the other do the lower section, or whichever one's got time can do the whole thing, so. And that's gonna be that'll be time and material.
So what will be happening on Sweet Pond, just?
From Bukowski Road and Campbell Road up to Potash Road, that's gonna be grass line ditching. They're gonna slope it out,
Right.
and it's gonna be all seeded. That will be with stone check dams in it, and then from Bukowski Road down to the little brook, that's down below it'll be on your left-hand side going up the road. That'll be stone line.
Great,
Well,
great. So the paving is gonna take place in fiscal year 2019?
yes, it'll
Have
be,
we moved funds from 2018 to 2019, or will we plan to do that?
we're gonna have to sit down and go through what we got, cause the paving I did last year
Yeah,
was
it was,
the prior
it
year
was the
before.
prior year's funding.
So, and I haven't done nothing with this year's money yet.
Right,
And then in July, we'll be starting over another new year again.
right.
So I'll have,
So you and Peter will sit down and.
yeah, we'll sit down, and next meeting, I'll come to you and say, hey, look, this is what we got, and this is what I wanna do, and,
Okay,
okay?
and then that will be.
Cause I have to come and ask the board, say, roll this money over,
Right,
and then you people have to approve it, so.
but it's okay, I'm just checking to make sure to do that, to do it after the end of the fiscal year. You can make that adjusting entry.
Yes, we can do it now, or we could do it then, it doesn't matter.
We don't know what the entry's gonna be yet,
No,
so.
we don't. So, the grant that Dan is referring to is the state paving grant, and that is actually with the match that the town has to put forward. That grant is actually for the entire 2 miles of Weatherhead Hollow Road that he was just describing. So that is covered by that grant. So his regular paving budget, he can use elsewhere in town.
It's awesome. Big help.
Pave away.
Thanks.
Any questions? Comments? Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
So I'm going to take off my select board hat for a minute and put on my Friends of Algiers Village board member person and talk about the Algiers Village Living Community Challenge. I'm going to move that in a minute. And actually, I just learned something today. It's not living communities, it's living community. So even though we have this beautiful presentation, there's a big problem right on the first page. And so I want to talk a little bit about it in terms of what was in Algiers Village, what could have been, what is, and what could be. And I want to do that in the context of recognizing what a great community this is of engaged, dedicated volunteers. Because everything that took place and everything that was envisioned really didn't draw on town funds or use town resources in any way. It was all part of funding and activities that happened as a result of volunteers over 14 years. So Ellie, could you just turn that light up, and Peter, I'm going to try this, and then if it doesn't work.
So go up to the slide, yep, up there, and play from start.
Okay, and then if I want to, so, sorry, so this is my first time doing a PowerPoint presentation.
Good for
Is it
you.
going? No.
Nope,
Okay, let me try it.
Gordon, can
Get
you?
the,
Hey,
get it down.
okay.
Get it down.
So you'll recognize our Tontine Village and behind it doggy daycare building, which was a warehouse, and this is what that looked like.
Down key.
Down key?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, and
Oh, that's the, oh.
Wow.
so one of the long time, you guys will all recognize this, maybe Gabby and Gordon and I
I know.
probably won't, but
I don't.
but this
Before
is
my
So what I was told is that this intersection, which is now Richmond's and the revised Ponting building, was a dangerous intersection because people never slowed down, they just took the corner or kept on going, and it was pretty scary. That's the old country store. So this was the bee barn,
Wow. Look at that.
and this was on,
Oh,
Those are
really?
all bee boxes.
yeah.
Wow.
So this is, okay, I'm gonna give credit to the class, the 2007 sixth grade class at Guilford Country School for
Oh,
putting
that's
together
right.
a much more extensive presentation, but I got my hands on this. And this was the country store, built in 2017, 1817, what did I just say? Sorry. Okay, everybody read. And, oops, I went.
No, it's common, it's just a little behind that finger.
Okay, this was gristmill.
Oh, John Gale.
It was burnt down, rebuilt, and then it went out of business. I think I missed one of the mills.
Oh, Brazer's store, right. People talked about that when I was interviewing the old timers. So,
Is that like where
okay.
the mailboxes are now?
Yeah, and this is what the site looked like in 2007. The gristmill's gone, the store's gone. There's a new, the store is gone, and there's a gristmill thing in the back. Richmond's Auto Repair.
Wow.
Oh, that's right.
And warehouses. I think these are, so it used to be a Guilford Home Center,
Yeah.
and then it became
Yeah,
Leaders,
Leaders.
Cocoa Plum.
and then it moved to
West Pratt, did
West
they?
Brattleboro, and that's it. It moved to West Brattleboro, and then it was just a bunch of derelict warehouses and some things, and yeah,
Oh,
Ellie.
can
you
I
can-
ask a question?
Yeah.
Is this slideshow available, for instance, on the Town of Guilford website? If people,
I think it could be. I just got it because I was trying to figure out the history of Algiers Village from when Danny was talking about using a BB gun to shoot rats or mice or something in the dumps. I mean,
Oh, the dumps,
across from the
right.
fire department used to be an old dump, right?
It's a
Up-
great
up on-
dump.
And then up on Melody
It
Hill
was
too.
up on Melody Lane.
Yeah, so,
A
so,
great dump to pick, actually.
All of those photographs are in that.
some of the photographs are in the
The
vision
one
plan,
thing you
yeah.
showed, most
So-
No, I just wondered whether if people wanted to see it, I thought it was a neat slideshow.
So then around 2004, there were 5 parcels in Algiers Village that went up for sale, the warehouses and a couple of other things. And I wasn't even here then. Residents were looking for support in building and buying these properties and stopping commercial or haphazard development in the whole village of Algiers. And one of the key people here was Eric Morse, who was a land surveyor and had been working on a Wyndham Housing Trust. At that time, it was only Wyndham, not Wyndham Wizard Housing Trust project in Canal Street, and was getting inquiries from different developers to develop different properties in Guilford, or the field, the meadow that's been preserved, land trust, and eventually the country store. People were looking at that too in 2009. So he's trying to get together, I think he started with Barry Leshnick and Fred Humphrey, and tried to get together a group of people to buy these properties. And it's a long story, but they worked together with Wyndham Housing Trust. One of the property owners who had 3 properties for sale needed to sell quickly because he was going through a divorce or something like that. So there was a sense of urgency about what might happen in the village at that particular time, given those particular circumstances with no zoning in Guilford, and the inquiries from the different kinds of businesses that would have essentially extended the Canal Street business industrial complex into Guilford. And there was a real desire on the part of neighborhoods to formulate a blueprint to develop housing and commercial space on an organized manner that would preserve the rural nature of Algiers Village. So they came up with a master plan between 2004 and 2007 they needed to clean up contamination in the triangle, which was brownfields, and extend Brattleboro's municipal water supply, and that happened. The main water line was funded entirely by state and federal money, but Guilford voters agreed to a bond to extend the water line to the town's fire station and to the emergency shelter, which was the church. So that's how that came about. In 2009, Pat Good wanted to sell the country store, but she wanted it to preserve the historic nature of the building, and she wanted to sort of provide local service to the community. And so she sold it to Friends of Algiers Village, and let's see, what did they say? Village stores are an important part of the fabric of Vermont. The Preservation Trust saw this as an essential ingredient to a thriving village center. And Senator Patrick Leahy was a big supporter and helped get funding there. So the government support and the Friends of Algiers Village support was pretty key. So now we have this great village center that people really enjoy, that people like the field that was bought by Guilford Preservation Inc. They like the fact that it's limited, it's a Vermont land trust property. They like the country store, they like the biking. There's some concerns about traffic safety and pedestrian safety and bicyclist safety. But overall, it's a much more vibrant community center than it ever was. So in 2017, 4 nonprofits got together in Guilford to think about becoming part of the Living Community Challenge, which was brought to our attention by Wyndham Regional Commission, who thought that Guilford, because of the nature of its volunteers and its, community spirit and its sort of can-do attitude, might be a good candidate for the first rural community to become part of the Living Communities Challenge. So I just wanted to sort of describe in very brief what is the Living Communities Challenge. So it lays out a set of goals for town planning commissions, for designers and contractors to fulfill on any building project, and it could be a building or it could be the space between buildings that falls within the boundary of a self-designated community. And Algiers Village is more or less 50 acres. It can be, it's a framework for developing a sustainable community master plan and overlaying social and economic performance metrics on this plan. So the goal would be to have a community that is environmentally sustainable, energy and water are independent, and it provides equal access to resource and opportunities, and it's rooted on natural ecosystems. So that's, in very brief, what the Living Communities Challenge is, and there is a large website about the Living Community Challenge, the Living Building Challenge, and it's pretty neat stuff. So, as I said, the Friends of Algiers Village, Community Collaborative for Guilford, Guilford Community Church, and Guilford Preservation Inc. got together in January of 2017 and realized that we have overlapping goals which we thought we could work on together. Ellie, please interrupt me if I'm not representing this accurately. So their 4 goals are controlled and desirable development, community well-being and vitality, social and economic equity, and environmental stewardship. So very briefly, controlled and desirable development. Guilford doesn't have zoning. There are no regulations. Anything could happen. But residents and the community groups have taken a proactive approach to guiding development in this community. Guilford Preservation Inc. is an obvious example of how a group of citizens banded together to purchase 22 of the 50 or so acres in Algiers Village along Route 5 at the entrance of Algiers Village, and the acquisition and eventual conservation easement placed on this parcel has ensured that the gateway into Algiers Village retains its is rural character in perpetuity. So this is relevant since just 2 miles away, less than 2 miles away, we have the commercial center exit at 1 off I-91. And let me just see if I'm skipping something here. We're hoping to empower the local community to steward desirable development in such a way that it is non-regulatory and in compliance with the Guilford Town Plan policies. The second goal was community well-being and vitality. Algiers Village is the current economic center in the town of Guilford, and the groups have raised funds, acquired and renovated several properties, and established a foundation for additional beneficial economic development in the town. The Guilford Country Store was established, and the historic Broadbrook House, turning a liability and eyesore into a community asset that's popular with residents and visitors. With regard to social and economic equity, CC4G is key here, that they are striving to provide accessible childcare and to advocate for the Guilford Food Pantry. The providing spaces that are accessible both physically and economically to all community members, and actively working to provide resources to the underserved. In terms of environmental stewardship, which is I think the fourth goal, the vision plan is dedicated to supporting the natural environment and protecting the natural resources that exist in and around Algiers Village. So there's some pocket parks and community gathering spaces in this plan. But the nonprofits seek to preserve and protect these resources and to promote active community engagement within these resources, so that people enjoy this. So this is a plan. It's a vision plan. It's not a master plan. It's not an implementation plan. It provides a pathway through which nonprofits and perhaps the community may actualize goals in collaboration with each other. It doesn't recommend regulatory or zoning solutions. It provides a framework for understanding the existing realities within Algiers, the unique needs of the community, and a set of solutions that lead toward a vibrant and healthy community. We're not looking at this point for implementation or construction. What we have now shows what can happen with the vibrant community. And the last thing I want to say about this is the nonprofits are not looking for a financial commitment from the town or any engagement from the town. It's just to update the town. This will be on our website, this plan. It's a huge document. It's worth, I don't know if people had a chance to read it.
I did.
But it's pretty impressive. My mother is 92 years old, and she read every word in this document. And she's decided that she'd like to stay in Guilford for a long time.
Oh, that's great.
And we're going to have a more widespread community meeting sometime in the late summer, early fall. This is just we promised updates to the select board. We did an update to the planning commission last week. And it's just kind of exciting to read, and I'd urge everybody to look at this. And we can get printed copies, but they're like $15 each, $15 or $16 each. So if people want, we'll try to figure out how to do that. So anyway, any questions?
Yes. So what is the...
Now I'm putting on my select board hat again. Oh, no, I'm not.
No,
Sorry.
No,
I'm not.
I don't want you to be a select board person right now. The living community plan, what of the four, the collaboration of the four nonprofits, what's the goal beyond the four goals? What is it that you really want? Do you want the plan to be implemented? Do we want the plan to be implemented? Do we want the plan to be,
So the end
this
goal?
is just not a theoretical exercise.
It is not a theoretical exercise, but the next step is decide if we want to apply for Living Community Challenge registration, to apply to become certified, and then for any project that any of the boards have to meet the certification requirements. Certification costs, initial certification applications will cost the four nonprofits $1,300. So that's a commitment that we have to figure out if we have the funding for it and stuff like that. And then we just sort of go ahead and we'd sort of use this as a master vision plan, but we would have to go into a master implementation plan, construction plans and implementation plans. It means using, if we were to construct a building, which there's not right now a plan to do that, it would be using, Gabby, you probably know the terms for this better than I, but materials that are certified by living communities to be more as chemical free as possible, as
Environmentally friendly,
environmentally friendly, energy efficient, etc. So, and there are lists, there are databases of siding, insulation, flooring, pipes, etc. that would be
Parking lot material.
parking lot materials, yeah, that we would use if we were to say go for making a building. So the next step would be to decide if we want to apply for certificate to become certified. Were we to become get this to ask to become certified and to get the certification, the Guilford, Village of Algiers and Guilford would get a lot more visibility and probably funding for projects that would be in the pipeline, that might be in the pipeline, from regional and national sources, not necessarily government, but say from supporters of the Living Community Challenge. The Living Future Institute is what's putting together the Living Communities Challenge. So the shorter term thing that's happened is that the 4 nonprofits are going to be meeting on a monthly basis, which is kind of nice because everybody's come out of their silos and are working together for this part. And hopefully it'll have a ripple effect in the community.
And we really have been meeting on a somewhat regular basis. But for me, this document is really something that can be used to encourage conversation in the community about how we want our community to be.
Yes.
And how we can live better together, better in all senses, physically, emotionally, socially,
Environmentally.
So it's a vehicle to bring those conversations out into the community.
Mm-hmm.
And the Living Futures Institute is a national nonprofit?
I believe so. It's national. I don't know if I'm pretty sure it's a nonprofit.
Yes,
Not
it is. I
100.
just looked it up.
You did, thank you.
It's a 501c3.
And their mission must be to get communities all over the United States to become living
They
communities.
started with like little living building challenge, so it's like a sort of they make it into a contest, but they certify. It's like LEED. If you're LEED certified,
Yeah.
for example, then you meet certain requirements. This is the same thing. So there's a living building in I forgot what college, maybe Dartmouth, and you have to.
Right now, they're actually
Yeah,
just today
we
we
just learned
talked
today.
about Williams College, Hampshire College,
Hampshire's where I'm thinking.
Smith College.
And like there's 4 or
There's a number
5
of
in
them.
that area that are part of this challenge now.
So what they did is they did one building, and it's net zero, no no water, so everything is contained, right? So you meet certain high standards that are certified by this organization. And what the organization decided to do is say, hey, not just one building, now it's a community, so you have to have at least a block, or you have to have some sort of large complex of buildings or people, and now we're going to make it a different challenge because we have living buildings. Now we're going to make it a community size. So they scaled it up, and the idea is it's a certification just like anything else.
Would you like to know the mission
What you
statement?
said.
Sure.
So the mission statement of the International Living Future is this. We are a nonprofit working to build an ecologically minded, restorative world for all people. Using principles of social and environmental justice, ILFI seeks to counter climate change by pushing for an urban environment free of fossil fuel. ILFI runs the Living Building Challenge, which is the world's most rigorous green building standard, not to mention several other programs. The Living Product Challenge, the Living Community Challenge, and the Revival, Declare, and Just Labels. These programs develop a green framework for living within a 21st century world.
So Ellie and I were in a meeting this morning, and one of the things that happened is because Guilford is the first rural community to apply for, to
get this far.
get this far, like to submit the letter of intent and to have this year plus of meetings. some of the questions that we've asked as a group have forced them to reconsider some of their requirements, some of their certification issues. And so it's been it's an interactive process from the beginning that has been pretty valuable, I think, on both sides, so, on both ends.
And so is there some kind of vision or plan for retrofitting old buildings that fall within the area that,
So I think that would
We
be
would be
part of
working.
a master implementation plan
I
as
see.
opposed to a vision plan. But, so the answer is, there's no, there's no building right now that we're considering. The Friends of Algiers Village is considering improving the site around the Guilford Country Store. And so even without this being adopted by any of the boards, this was used as the basis for how we might create the plan for doing the parking lot and the putting some more green space around there and stuff like that, so. Eric, were you gonna say something?
Just to know that that was the basis. I mean, it was,
It was taken into consideration.
okay.
Yeah, sorry. It was part of the consideration, yeah. Sorry, Eric is also on Friends of Algiers Village Board.
We know.
Yeah, you missed my speech about you.
Oh, yeah.
Any more questions? Okay.
well, it's exciting to hear about it.
Yes, I second that.
Aspirational, but I don't mind aspiring.
So I will pass out, there are just like, Eric gave me a 2012 Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust thing on Algiers Village, and so I thought I would just make 4 copies for
Thank you.
the board.
Thank you.
And I used some of it in my little talk tonight, so here we are. Can I become select board again?
Yes.
So we're not talking about Kathy, traffic safety around the library yet. Cemetery and town mowing bids. So we had one bid that came to the attention of the board, that one bid in response to our reaching out to a number of people, which was from Vermont Roadworks for a total of
$23,650.
$23,650. That is a lot of money compared to the fact that we have only paid about $4,000 for town mowing up until now.
Excuse me, so by town mowing, do you mean the cemetery mowings or the,
Cemetery,
or all of the
Library,
town
town
mowing?
office.
tending to, the cemeteries that needed mowing and tending to the library's needs have been less than $4,000 a year. So that's a big jump of $20,000. And it just went against everything that the cemetery commission, I had long conversations last week with Sean and Eric about this. As a result of not having workers' comp, the town was assessed a charge of $167 from our insurer. It's as if fine
Not having workers come for the mowers.
for the mowers.
The previous
Right.
mowers.
For hiring people who do not
Yeah.
currently carry it.
Right. I know that some of the cemetery commission members thought that our fine was somewhere around $4,000, but in fact it was only $167. It related of the fine
Yeah.
to the town mowing thing. And Sean did a lot of legwork last year and learned that it is probable that it is recommended, highly recommended, that we work with contractors who have workers' comp, but not a mandate by the state. But if we don't have that, then we do have some risk in terms of liability of contractors who mow and don't have workers' comp and could sue the town for damages, and who could also, that would then increase the insurance premiums to the town by approximately 8%, and I do not know how much up to 8%, Sean, right? And I don't know
I think
what,
so, it wasn't a specific number,
Mhm.
but it would raise the workers' comp for the town
premiums,
if there was a catastrophic injury.
yeah.
In other words, the person would be covered, but then
But
they'd
the
raise.
insurance premiums would increase.
Yes.
How would a person be covered? Under what?
Under our insurance.
Under our
Under
insurance.
insurance. But then.
Not workman's comp.
No.
insurance, No.
No.
Just
The town's
under-
liability
Under the
insurance.
town's, yeah.
Exactly.
If you file a 1099 for somebody that you've received an invoice for, then that person does not have workers' comp. I think that's the vehicle where the person gets coverage. Because,
That is correct,
is that right?
yes.
Thank you.
So,
And if I can interrupt,
Yeah.
through my conversation with the VLCT, through the passive representative, she did state that the other towns who have been through that ordeal in which someone sued the town, they were all assessed the maximum increase in their premiums, she said.
so it's
8% of the
8%
premium
of
you're
the
currently.
premium.
So it's 8% over a period of years, like
Yes.
5 to 10 years.
It's between 5 and 10 years, depending on a number of factors in that process.
So did we do an estimate that might, over the period of years, come up with like maybe a maximum of $50,000?
I think that was sort of just pulled off the wall.
Yeah,
I think it would be better, rather than mentioning a dollar amount, to actually figure it out. I spoke with Sue Benoit again today,
did?
Susie Benoit, yeah. Just
And who
to,
is she?
She's
Sean?
in
she
Passive.
is the person that works for Vermont Cities and Leagues and Towns. I don't have the.
Vermont League of
name.
Cities and Towns.
Thank you. And she does the workers' comp aspect of things. So, and I did ask her the specific question, is it a mandated by statute?
Mhm.
And it is not.
Okay,
It's a recommendation. But she said there are quite a few towns in the state of Vermont that are, if they're rural, they do not have people that have workers' comp that can do that type of work. And they do get a 1099. And, I mean, it's something that the state is not thrilled about, but on the other hand, it is permissible.
But if you have the penalty on the insurance, the 8%, that doesn't take into account what the suit would be, which would be suing the town for libel, which could be up to $1 million.
No,
In- in-
but that libel,
Okay,
It's liability, it's general liability, but it would be, I'm assuming our insurance is $1 million per occurrence and $2 million aggregate. So we'd be covered up to, like, let's hope that somebody very young doesn't, he's mowing the lawn and a rock hits him in the head and kills him. Would $1 million cover it? I don't know. If you're talking about, like, future loss of work, or if they were disabled or something, I don't know. I mean, but that's pretty common as far as liability limits.
But
But-
bringing it back to Guilford, though, in the cemeteries,
so this is Eric Morse.
Eric Moore,
Guilford
Cemetery
Cemetery
Commissioner. And so, this is an issue that comes up periodically, like when there's a change of board members, basically. And so the way we've dealt with it in the past is the current situation is in a lot of ways the model, it's the ideal of how it should be. Community members taking care of historic cemeteries. So we have that in several cases. We have Mary Jo Lashway, the cemetery's across from her house, it's their family cemetery. She's been taking care of it for years. And they mow the field in between the two cemeteries, so it's part of what she does. We feel like the risk is, we recognize the risk, but that it's low, very low risk. We have, what's his name?
Yeah, Matthew Earp.
Matthew Earp takes
Used to
care.
be his
Yeah.
father, Mike, and now it's Matthew.
Right, so
Takes care of
Weatherhead
Weatherhead
Hollow
Hollow.
Cemetery. His father took care of it for years, now he's taking care of it. They live right there. It's like, they're at the end of the road. Jerry Baker takes care of
Blanchard.
Blanchard, and he's been doing that for a long time.
Well, actually, it used to be Peter Hannon, but the access is so difficult
Right.
that Peter preferred. He said basically, no, I can't really do this with my
Right.
machine, so.
And then you also have Peter Hannon, who does three
Right.
cemeteries, who invested in a very expensive mower and has
It's
liability.
his business.
It's
what
his
he
business, he
does.
has liability
He's done it
insurance.
for a long time.
Correct.
And he takes care of the other cemeteries that are taken care of. So it's kind of a nice situation. We realize it's temporary. We'd like to take it year by year. We would like to keep our current setup. It's economical, community-minded, it touches all these bases. If things change, then we would be receptive to following some standard procedure for getting the cemeteries mowed. But I think we have a really nice situation, I'd like to hang on to it.
I mean, the people who do the cemetery now, they get paid, they're not volunteers,
Right.
because obviously volunteers be covered under our insurance no matter what,
Right.
and nobody wants to volunteer.
Jerry did it?
Well, yeah, but he isn't on this 167 because if you're below 600, you don't trigger a 1099. So Jerry
Right.
is under that, so.
But even when Peter Hannon was taking care of Blanchard, Jerry still did clearing up there if trees came down. He's invested in that cemetery, he likes it.
So is the issue before the select board then, whether the select board wants to have people who are mowing all of the town properties, including the cemeteries, have workman's compensation, or, I'm just asking what the issue is. Or do we want to continue with the model that Mr. Morse is suggesting that has been in effect for years, which is volunteers who are
They're
not,
not volunteers.
they're paid, but they're not workman compensation.
And I mean, I guess the other thing to be clear is if they're a sole proprietor, they don't need workers' comp, they don't have any workers,
We-
right? So.
Well, we actually,
Did you
Well, going back to Eric's point
Wait,
with
is
the
that,
board's
can I just
changing.
well, I didn't get my question
Okay,
answered.
go ahead.
Okay, so is that what,
So-
Well,
why-
part of it,
I
I
wanna-
think, is what I want to say, and that is only, we were told as a board, at least this is my recollection, that we needed to have people working at any level for the town that were covered under workman's comp and an independent contractor type environment, or they couldn't do it. So something
Who told
has
us?
changed is my understanding that is not accurate.
It's our board policy. So we created a policy that said that.
But
This
that was
passive-
because we understood it to be.
I don't think that's the
unnec-
case. I think we tried to be fair and to minimize risk to the town.
so I think,
And-
no, I'm with you. I think we understood that in order to minimize the risk to the town, we had to do this. You know, that we were actually sort of complying with regulations. At
That's
least
what
that
I'm-
was my understanding.
State
too.
regulations?
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it's
And-
not a state regulation.
it isn't. It's, you know,
It's a insurance.
it's an
Insurance
insurance
issue.
requirement,
Right.
yeah. So you're, in a way, yes, you're right. The issue is, we have a request for a proposal response that we need to respond to. We do not need to, in the RFP, it says we do not need to accept the proposal. It's hugely expensive to the town. It's not in our budget. And we then began to hear from cemetery commissioners, and Sean did an amazing job of researching all the other issues about this. And so I thought it was wise to bring it back to the board and say, do we want to do what the cemetery commission is asking us to do, which is to proceed on a year-by-year basis, and assume what they consider to be a very small risk of claims against the town for the cost of a passive charge on the $4,000 that we pay instead of the $24,000 that we would pay. So that is the question before the board at this point.
So is there what if we wanted to have the people who were doing the mowing having workman's compensation? Is
Well-
that the only bid that we can get? Is that the
Yes.
only way we can do it? Well, I know we put it out we requested proposals.
So Peter put it out to bid.
Yeah.
Nobody responded. I gave him 2 suggestions of people to contact. One person, that was Vermont Roadworks, responded. I have thanked Tara for her response under the circumstances, because it was a pretty rushed response. After I started having conversations with the Cemetery Commission, I asked Jethro Eaton to talk, and Penny to talk to us about this, and Penny asked Christine Renaud to talk about this, and you didn't get anything from anybody. So I think we have to, my personal opinion is respect the cemetery commissioners who have a great deal of experience in this and who each individually put in an enormous amount of work and time themselves to do this, and decide whether we as a board are willing to accept the risk on a year-by-year basis.
I mean, and just to frame this, I mean, we have been dealing with this issue of finding competent people who are willing to do the work since back in the 20th century, and we have actively searched for people who had the requisite insurance without success. And statewide, this is an issue for every rural town. And my wish, and it's out of the scope of tonight's meeting, is that the Vermont League of Cities and Towns would take up this issue and come up with some kind of workaround for the volunteers who, I mean, to have Mary Jo Gaines mow around her son's grave is something that I want to preserve in Guilford.
Thank
Well,
you.
the other thing I just want to add to that, and it kind of differs back to what Eric was talking about, the individuals that have been doing this for the town for all these years pay more attention to what they're doing in those cemeteries than, and I'm not saying that if we had a contracted group taking care of them, that they wouldn't put care into it. I just feel that, you know, the people that have been doing it for so long have been doing it for those reasons, and they'll do a better job.
Yeah.
Well, also, maintenance in cemeteries is sensitive.
Exactly.
They have to know how to cut around fragile stones.
Right.
So, and in terms of risk factors, you know, not mathematical ones, but real life ones, someone who has experience taking care of a particular cemetery, I'm sure knows how to do it safely, as opposed to, say, an employee of a landscaping company.
Right.
I don't understand the year by year, why do we have to say that? What
Because
does
maybe
year by
Peter,
year mean?
so next year, maybe somebody's not gonna be able to do it, maybe Jerry Baker's not
Oh,
gonna
so
wanna do it.
you're talking about the
So-
capacity of those people who are doing it
Yeah,
now?
so
You're not
they're-
referring to the policy.
So the cemetery
being
commission, I
reviewed
think,
year
would
by
like
year.
to make recommendations to us on an annual basis about how to manage the contract for mowing the
I
cemeteries.
understand now.
Or the business,
ought to be
the
done.
project of mowing the cemeteries.
May I interject? We also need to remember, in addition to the complexity of the cemetery mowing, is this also includes the mowing of the town office parcel, as well as the mowing of the library,
And the
as
playscape?
well as the playscape, in addition to the cemeteries, which we still need an answer on, because as of the end of this week, we won't have anyone mowing at the moment at least for the town office. And the library has been on and off from a variety of people. And so the other thing, as I understood what was presented to me by Susie, is that mowing of any town properties, if it's not done by town employees, that it is something that we have to go out to bid for annually. It's not something that we just do. So Eric's recommendation of doing it on an annual basis is correct from my understanding from what was explained to me.
Sean?
Yeah, it's fallen on me to make all the calls and try to bring the people in that are gonna do the work. And it goes back a long time, and we've used, as Eric mentioned, it's all been, you know, people in the town of Guilford. So there is in the works the possibility, I'm not gonna name any names or anything, but the possibility that we could get one entity to do more. So I thought I'd wait until after tonight's meeting And I will approach that individual and see if there's an interest there.
Doing the hall town.
Yeah,
office
to
in
be the library, and the town office, which would be abbreviated because of all the construction now, but I think, you know.
That's my opinion this year, through
Yeah,
the fall.
but it
yeah.
would still be important to, you know, do the weed whacking and maybe take a push mower around, just so it, you know, it's not unkempt. But let me see what I can pull together.
I also got a call this afternoon from Robin Frazee from the Historical Society, wondering if that is going to be included in this. And he said the Historical Society would be willing to pay for it out of their own budget, but wanted to know if whomever was interested in mowing the town office as well as the library and the playscape, if they would also tack on that, they would just get potentially paid from two different entities to do that as well. So that was just something that he called and asked about this afternoon.
Yeah, okay. And another little thing, I believe that it's not a state requirement that a sole proprietor has to have workers' comp. I never had
A what?
workers' comp.
Sole proprietor.
Sole
Sole
proprietorship.
proprietor.
No,
It's not.
you don't have workers.
Right, yeah. No, so it's only when you have employees
Yeah.
that the workers' comp comes in. And the sole proprietor doesn't need to cover him or herself, so.
It's
Right.
not, it's an insurance requirement, it's not a state requirement.
Yes.
So where do we go with this?
I think we need a motion on the one response to the RFP that we have, and a second motion, depending on the first, to accept or reject the cemetery commission's request, and then a further commitment to follow up with Sean on the
Other,
town
the other.
Town mowing, yeah, not the cemetery.
The other locations.
So we need 3 different motions?
I think we
Okay,
need
I
2.
move that we,
Can I ask a question? So your recommendation from the budgetary perspective is that we haven't put the $24,000 in the budget, and you're recommending that we shouldn't.
My personal recommendation as a select board, and my vote will be to not accept the current the response to the RFP, because it's not in the budget and it's too much money for the town, yes. And because it doesn't honor and respect the work of the individuals who have committed a lot of their time to the town cemeteries over the years. So, but that's not the motion yet.
No, but that
Yeah.
was, I was
Yes,
just.
that's my opinion after a lot of
conversation.
conversation.
To be expressed.
Yes, yeah.
Right, but we can't add any, we can't just add to the budget, right?
Right.
And we can't add to FY19's budget, right?
Yeah,
It just is what it is. What you could do is move the money
right,
around.
I mean, if we wanted to, if we needed to find
Right.
it, we would
Or
find
take it out of our reserve fund,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's not real, I mean, you can always go, right, a budget's a guide. You can always go over, under, usually you just explain, why did I go over, under
Yeah.
this year and take it into consideration. So it's not like we can't, you would be.
But it is a factor in our
Absolutely.
thinking that it's
Yes.
not,
Absolutely.
it hasn't been
Absolutely.
budgeted, and it's a large amount of money.
Absolutely.
so I move that we respectfully decline Vermont Roadworks RFP, thanking them for their preparation.
I second.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. The second issue is with regard to care of the cemeteries this year, will the town of Guilford move to accept the cemetery commission's proposal for continuing on continuing servicing, tending the cemeteries as they usually do on a year-by-year basis, to be considered
I'll make a
annually by
motion that
the...
we continue to
Sorry, that's
allow
a-
the
Can I
cemetery.
vote on this as a cemetery commissioner?
Why not?
Just disclose that you have a
Yeah.
potential
Oh.
conflict.
Oh, I have
And
a
then-
conflict,
but you don't-
okay.
Yeah.
And just that you- but
Could you word that better than I did?
So I'm moving that we accept the Cemetery Commission's recommendation that they continue with their current mowing personnel and carekeepers of the cemeteries for the next year.
I would like to second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions, okay. And I think the action here is that you and Sean will talk about what might be arranged with one of the cemetery mowers about the town office with the possibility of adding in the Historical Society and mulching, annual sort of caring of the library, is that, there's not
And
much
what-
mowing of the library, if I
The
understand correctly.
playscape.
And Playscape, I don't know if Vermont Roadworks would be willing to continue to
volunteer.
donate their time on a, once every 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know how often that needs to be done, but I think you could explore that also, please.
Okay.
And I would like to thank once more, I mean, I know we've said this, but both Tara Cheney for showing up at the last meeting, for doing that bid on a really rush basis, for helping us out when we were looking for just something. And also Jethro Eaton and Christine Renault for taking some time to also think about this and put their, to see whether they could help the town come up with a counter proposal to have the town.
Can we send a letter to Vermont
I
Roadworks?
think that
I
would be
will
a nice
certainly
thing
do
to
so.
do, yeah,
That's a
thank you.
gnarly situation, and I'm going to explore how this plays out statewide for my own interest
I
as
think-
a cemetery commissioner.
And I think that's something that Peter could help you
Yeah.
with too.
Good
And it might
research.
be good when we do an RFP next year to have like the town buildings and the cemeteries
Separate, yeah.
Separate. I like that idea. I think it's,
Veranda, we have the town fair coming up in the fall, and they often ask for suggestions of workshops or seminars, and that could be something
I would
that
love that.
You
That would
would-
be so great.
talk to them about. Thank you.
Let's get into the cemetery.
I'm gonna suggest that since Laura is here, we talk about traffic safety around the library now. Sorry, Eric?
I have to leave now too, I was just wondering maybe at the end, I just have a question about the Route 5 bridge between Melody Hill Road and Algiers. And who's responsible for maintenance on it?
State.
Someone told me that it was the town for taking care of the sidewalk. And in the, all winter, it was never plowed.
That's right, we're,
And now it's just full of gravel and dust. It's like you still don't want to walk on it.
A little bit of broken glass or something too.
So so that's my question. And
So your road commissioner is sitting right there. I think it's the state, right, Dave?
supposedly, we're supposed to be maintaining the sidewalk on that, supposedly.
And that's supposedly because,
The contract was signed with the state at the time of
Yes.
the region.
In my recollection that we're responsible for the.
And that was one of the conditions of the contract,
Right.
so.
Right.
But I don't think we can really discuss it as it's not
It's
really
not
properly
agenda
noticed
item.
and out of order and.
right, so for some
so
future
you want to put that on, thank you, Eric.
So long.
All right, thanks.
Thanks
Thanks,
for coming,
everyone.
Eric and
Thank you,
Sean.
Eric,
And Sean,
Sean.
thank you for all your
Thanks,
time
Sean.
Thank you
too.
for the work and research you did on that.
See ya.
Traffic safety, Laura.
Hi, so, I just sit here. Is that what I should do?
Sure.
So I've been thinking a lot about this, and this is the speeding on Guilford Center Road, and in particular through the village. And I've been thinking, all right, what do we do? So Peter, that was great, you got the digital readout. I've been watching and studying the response to it. And actually, there have been a couple young people who've tested the speed of their running. This digital readout. So that's been helpful. But I'm coming really representing the library, but also as someone who lives there too, and someone who's lived there for a very long time. And I've got lots of concerns. And it's not just people speeding through, because that happens, and it happens a lot. The digital sign definitely does make a difference. So I've just been thinking about the whole problem of speeding, and I started thinking about, okay, so marketing. I know when one does a marketing project, you think about 4 or 5 different ways to get your message across. And so then I started thinking, well, would the select board consider a campaign? And I'm not even just talking about Guilford Center, but I'm really talking about all the roads in Guilford and safety. And a campaign that gets the message out in a way that's rooted in, these are our neighbors that most of us, put myself there too, are speeding by and creating unsafe situations. So what would be a way we could put the message out? So I was just brainstorming. So like front porch, the select board yourselves personally talking to 5 people and asking them, are they aware of their speed that they're doing on given roads? So that's just one line of thinking. But back to Guilford Center, what is really worrisome to me, and this is the scary part, is that I've witnessed enough times, and I'm going to include school buses. School buses are culprits too, of going way too fast. If there was a child in the road, forget dogs and all of that, just a child, the bus, the truck, the really fast car, there is no way they could stop. There's no way, given their speed. And it freaks me out. It like really freaks me out. And so now I'm thinking about the town, and I'm thinking about liability, and I'm thinking about the grass cutting, that I'm super aware of this new pushing for policy, which I understand, for people who are cutting grass for the town to have insurance. And so now I'm thinking, well, in line with that, we should be thinking about the library, patrons of the library coming, lots of young children, lots of camps happening, and we should be really concerned. So that's one piece. But so I'm not coming here to like berate or get mad or whatever. I'm really coming to say this is a problem that's a tricky problem, because we're talking about what's going on in our society today, and it's fast. That's what's happening in our society. And I'm there too. Fast, fast, fast. Down the road, go to work, all of that. And I think a big part of the problem is people aren't even aware. They're just already at their destination when they're behind the wheel. So one thing, and Danny, I'm glad you're here because I want to ask you this. So I've been really looking at all the speed limits signs. So starting from Price Chopper, and this is perplexing to me. Route 5, I know that's not the town, but Route 5 coming to Guilford Center Road is all 35 miles per hour, the entire stretch. Doesn't make sense to me that parts of Guilford Center Road, even some of this parts, are 45 miles per hour. It makes no sense to me. Because I know for myself, posted speed limit, I always go 5 miles over. So then we're talking 50. That some people are driving, and even more. So that's just a question about the posted speed limits on Guilford Center Road. It's just, I find it, I just driving here right now, it changes, you know this better than I do. The speed limit changes about 6 times between when you turn right on Guilford Center Road from town and you get here. That is like, how could anyone keep track of what the speed limit is? Part of the what Walter Greenleaf used to call the Greenland bends are 30, other parts are 35, but then there's another section that's 45.
It's 45 from the Hollow Bridge.
Yep.
Actually, it's 45 from
Tater Lane.
Tater Lane
Tater Lane.
to, then you got another speed limit sign at the bridge,
That's
Hollow
right.
Bridge at 45.
That's right.
And then once you get up around, they're putting up new signs now,
Yep.
and the speed limits are gonna be posted on them signs.
Okay, well,
When you come around the so-called Greenland bends and
yes.
coming up through here, you got warning signs
Yep.
with a speed limit at 35.
Right. So my question is, why can't it all be 35?
That's something the board would have to.
That's just a question to pose. Why not?
All of Guilford Center Road.
Yeah, all of Guilford Center Road. Part of what's 45 in the earlier part of Guilford Center Road is it's still a lot of houses. There's a lot of, right after Tater Lane, there's a whole stretch that's 45, I think up to Weatherhead Hollow, I think.
No, it's just past the Tater Lane.
Okay, so anyway.
Once you
so
go
there's-
past Tater Lane, it's 45.
Yeah, so there's a section of 45, and there's lots of driveways and a lot of cars right there. It makes no sense to me that it's that fast, and Route 5 is 35, just as a comparison. And so anyway, back to the library. I just am pleading my case that the select board really take seriously. This is a serious problem. And I would be I'd be happy to help. And again, I really appreciate the digital sign. That was really good. And I think that it's something that we need to get the message out to all of Guilford residents, not even just going through Guilford Center.
Well,
Weatherhead
you're on
Hollow.
TV right now, Laura.
We don't want a tragedy. And we're saying to ourselves, we should have. And the speed is just, it's scary. And I know it's true on Weatherhead Hollow Road too.
It is, and actually, having traveled back and forth past the library several times this weekend to go to the Playscapes area, I caught myself going fast and seeing it on that sign, which I thought was great, the digital sign.
Yeah.
But I was also surprised at how much traffic there was on Carpenter Hill Road.
Yes.
There was a tremendous amount of
Yes.
traffic on Carpenter Hill
Yes.
Road.
Yeah. Yeah, and the skid tire burning rubber marks on School Road. So it is not unusual, on the weekend in particular, for cars and motorcycles to use School Road and going through the center and the Greenland Bends as a joyride and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's not unusual.
We also have that at down by Weatherhead Hollow Pond and on Geesbrook Road. Because we have people doing donuts and stuff down at the end of the four-way intersection down there.
So just the one thing that I don't know what the answer is, and I think it's many-pronged back to, and I'll stop. But I think that approach to marketing to get a message across, to have a campaign and get your message across. You guys remember, I mean, some of us are of this age of don't be a litter bug, or do you remember that? Like from a
Give
long
a hoot,
time.
don't pollute.
Yeah, give a hoot, don't pollute. And I know that's like really corny, but it works, something, And I'm also thinking, you guys in the select board and us, I mean, we do a lot for Guilford because we live in Guilford and we care about Guilford and we care about people who live in Guilford. So then I started thinking, so it's not just I want to beat people over the head, slow down, because that doesn't work. But can we get the message across of we're neighbors, let's take care of each other. So I'm sorry for being kind of long-winded and trite, but.
You're not right. And I think last year, Gabby, you spent a lot of time with Danny looking at our highway traffic ordinance, and
We revised it.
and
'cause
we revised it.
We made the
into-
35 mile per hour. I mean, the reason why it's 35 mile per hour on Route 5 is because it's a village, right? And the same reason it's 35 miles per hour when you get close to the village here.
But there's other parts that are quite congested on Guilford Center Road. It's confusing.
In any event, one of the issues that I think is that it, at least if she catches herself doing it unintentionally, it's because the road is open. So even if you can post 25 and people are still going to do what they're going to do, right? And the other issue is that it's not just people in Guilford. So I'm wondering if there isn't a more creative solution that maybe we can work on with the Planning Commission, something like doing planters down on either side so you visually want to slow down.
I think there's.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think there's ways of doing it that's not, that we can look into that maybe aren't just speed signs, because they don't, they're not particularly effective.
No.
And it's not just people in Guilford,
And
so.
you're talking about entrenched habits of people driving.
Exactly,
Right.
and so.
Believe me, I know.
And so
Yes,
there might
you're a
be,
culprit.
maybe the communications department can work with, to brainstorm maybe a creative idea that, outside the box that would work and beautify the village area.
Yeah, I think that's good.
And also, go ahead, Ellie.
I was gonna say, if you're driving up Route 5 from Bernardston, there's still that sign that says 50 unless otherwise posted.
Yeah, in Guilford.
I would love
there's
to take
one.
that sign down.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
kind of like, people think 50,
License.
That's
50
your,
mile an
That's a
hour.
state
that's
sign.
your,
That's
that's
state.
your state law
Yeah.
speed.
Yeah.
That
As
50.
moved into Vermont,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
Problem.
Right.
See,
And this-
when, years ago, when they set these speed limits up, Wyndham Regional came in, along with the, I'm pretty sure the sheriff's department. They came in and they did a survey of all these different spots. And that's how they came up with the speeds.
Yeah, that's what it says about the 45 miles.
Yep, that's
The
how all,
results of
that's how all them
traffic
speed
study
limits
done.
got set.
Well, when you come off Sweet Pond Road or Stage Road and you hit the pavement, I mean, I've seen it a million times, and it says 45. So it's like, woo! You know, 45 means 50 or 55. And then you're in the center.
But I think, I think those are all good questions, and I think that this has come up a number of times, so maybe the communications subcommittee can work together and and work maybe with other collaborators, and maybe find something other than speed limit signs, which don't seem to be effective.
Yeah, and I'd love you to consider like a campaign, that there's actually many ways that you think about addressing this, which can also be a police officer on occasion actually giving tickets.
Well, they have.
I know.
And people have been going crazy because they're getting a working person going to work.
Good,
You know, it's,
Good.
you know.
good. I mean,
So-
I got a ticket coming up Chicken Coop Road, Chicken Hill Coop Road, you know, like 1985. I still remember it. I come to that and I slow down.
And the other
So
thing is,
it works.
if you know when people are doing what, you know, their loops,
Yeah,
if it's a
yeah.
particular Saturdays at, you know, between 2 and 4, we can ask
The Vermont State Police.
to patrol.
To patrol at a specific time.
So I think that's one approach also.
Well, I think it might be also interesting to get the school and the
Yes.
library, the camps involved in having them brainstorm how, you know, we have this designated area of, I mean, Guilford Center is a village center, and how can we enhance the quality of life there?
And I
So,
just wanted to say, it's more frequent where you're talking about, but the back roads are just as bad. I was talking to a neighbor in West Guilford who lives, you know, close to the road, and he told me, you know, cars are flying by. How do we get them to slow down?
Well,
And-
that's what, I mean, that's what I was trying to say, is
Yeah.
it's not just about Guilford Center.
No, I know.
It's all
It's-
of Guilford.
Well, it's
Well,
all,
it's-
It's everywhere, but right now, here, we're talking about Guilford,
Yeah.
yeah.
But my point is, this is a,
It's been an ongoing
Right.
problem for,
But I think
ever
it's
since
increasing.
I lived in the village. I mean,
Yeah.
there've always been,
But don't you feel like
people-
it's getting faster?
well, I mean, it's, yeah, no, I mean,
No, I
you don't want someone to
You
get
know,
hurt. That's the
yeah.
Well,
bottom line,
that's-
and especially with the
yeah.
activity, particularly around the library
Right.
with summer camps
So-
and whatnot in the Grange. You just don't want to see someone hurt, period.
so Laura, I think, I want to express our appreciation for your taking the time to talk about this and to raise our,
Consciousness.
consciousness a little bit more. And we'll just try to think about what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not alone by any means.
And I do know that. I just was speaking up and I know
Yeah.
many people.
No,
are
thank
doing
you.
this. Yeah, yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Okay. And just remembering with library camps, there are lots of kids running around the
Right,
lawn.
we get it.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Laura.
guys very
Thank you.
much.
Laura, you could feel free to put stuff on Front Porch Forum yourself.
Yeah, I was just feeling like if it was from the select board as more of an official, we're really wanting to inspire consciousness and caring about your neighbors or something like that. It feels a little bit more, I mean, yes, I could do that, but,
Lecturing.
Coming from the library too.
Yep.
well, the library can too, but I think
Yeah.
coming from the town, it has official oomph.
Thank you.
Thank you, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Laura.
Next item on the agenda is, we are now able to vote on the whether or not we want to adopt the revised energy section of the 2015-2020 town plan. I don't know if anybody wants to have any more discussion about it. I know we've spent some time in this.
So moved.
Yeah.
And thank you to the planning commission.
Yes.
I
And the
second your
mayor.
motion.
So Gabby has moved and Richard has seconded that the select board adopt the revised energy section of the 2015-2020 town plan. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Well, I think we should thank them also, perhaps, you know,
Yes.
select board thanks from us
Um,
for all their work.
The next thing is the review and the vote on the RFPs for the town fuel, and I'm just gonna say that I know you had 50 people, I only had 20 this weekend, but I did not read those proposals. So Peter, would you like to read?
Sure. Richard, you seconded that?
Yeah. And Barrows is the least expensive.
Okay. So the fuel.
Stretch.
I do want to say, excuse me, before we start reviewing these were due last Wednesday, the proposals, and I was not in the town office. Peter was on holiday, and Ellie was here, and she called me up and she said what to do, and she just handled the whole thing wonderfully and
Thank you.
opened them up in front of whoever had appeared to be, you know, at the reading. And I really appreciate your stepping in, Ellie, for us at that time. It was just great. I actually didn't have a car to get here to help. So.
Yes, it was just a public reading. So the first one that we received was from Suburban. So I sent out the RFP. I posted it publicly, as well as asked our 4 local fuel providers if they would be interested in putting forth a proposal to us. So we received one from Suburban Propane. The fixed price of propane would be $1.57 plus 35-cent premium on that.
What?
No, it was a fixed price of $1.57.
Sorry.
As an example, today's price
Yep,
plus
thank you.
35 cents would be $1.435.
Yep.
So they were giving us
So
an
capped or
example.
fixed?
It would be fixed, but he was giving us a point, a guide point. Like
Yes.
today, plus 35 cents would be $1.435. So he's just saying, here's where you would be today, disclosure, you know,
So
give you a
based on a
guidance.
conversation with the gentleman from Dead River, he explained to me that propane prices change on a monthly basis and the fuel oil prices change on a weekly basis. So all of these quotes will be as of whatever the day was that they quoted for us. So Gabby was correct. If propane's fixed price at $1.57 a gallon, fuel oil is at 2.6003 per gallon, and diesel is at 2.7617. That is from Suburban Propane.
Do you want those figures?
I mean, I made myself a little chart, because otherwise
Yeah, I know, I can't even.
We have to
like,
give them all, but I would just recommend that we go with Barrows, because it's the least expensive.
Right, but they don't have propane. Did they give us a propane quote?
No.
They did not, only fuel oil and diesel.
So I agree, Barrows is the cheapest.
How much propane do we use on an annual basis?
Not a lot.
No, that's,
No, I mean, what is it for?
we use fuel oil and we don't use fuel oil, but we do use diesel. So-
Diesel is by far the most
Yeah.
that
And
we
they
use.
quote
It's
it,
not
but
even close.
Barrows is.
How much fuel?
Yeah.
Or,
But that-
Summer and winter quotes, yeah, they did number 2 heating oil and diesel, Barrows did, but not propane. The other 2 did propane in addition.
But if you run our diesel requirements for the year and you look at those disparities that were by company, I think it will far offset even close to what we use. I mean, that's what we ought to look at.
Why do we have to have the same vendor? I mean,
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
What do we-
that's-
I would
that's
take
what I'm
I would
Barrows
saying.
take
and
Barrows
We
and
do.
Suburban
And Suburban,
Propane.
exactly.
Exactly.
We don't have to have the same vendor.
Yeah.
And our propane use is, I think, was 55 gallons. is what
Okay.
I-
Yeah, it's nothing.
It's nothing.
So Gabby, would you like to make a motion based on your little spreadsheet there?
A very technical post-it.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion to accept the Barrows proposal for number 2 heating oil at $2, $3.25 fixed rate, and diesel, the summer rate is additional 20 cents, winter additional 30 cents. And the Suburban proposal for the propane, which is a fixed $1.57.
Seconded.
And those are at those dates, correct? That they were given to us.
As of the proposal dates.
So are they still good as of this date?
It was supposed to be good for 45
Good,
days,
thank you.
is what the
Perfect.
RFP said.
You seconded?
Yeah.
Good man.
So, I'm sorry, you moved to accept Barrows Official for fuel oil and diesel and the Suburban for propane.
At the pick, yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the discussion of the impact on Guilford if the state shuts down at the end of this week. And I've shared 2 pieces of information with select board members, but there's a third one. So one of the good things is that we have money on hand for the business of the town, and that we have pre-collected taxes of close to $97,000. So financially, we're in a good situation. What we are not in a good situation to do is to issue the tax bills on time, because we do not yet have an education rate from the state, and so we can't do that calculation. And that means that our tax bills will
Be delayed.
they could well be delayed. I'm just trying to think now if in previous years we had this information before the end of the fiscal year, or if we had to
No.
wait until June, July sometime. I think that information comes in the middle of July.
And Penny told me that we usually set the tax rate the second meeting in July. So if all goes well and things move forward in the state in the next
Yeah.
couple of weeks, we could issue the tax bills at about the same time. And then I think I just wanted to look into this to let people know that their tax bills might be delayed because of the state shutdown, not because of us. But
Yeah.
be prepared. We'll issue them as soon as when it's practicably possible.
So if the state, if we can't issue them when they should go out, the tax bills, then,
When we usually have them go out, yeah.
so then we should have a plan, to send a message to our citizens that the tax bills will be late this year.
Which is what we did last year when we had the appraisal that was delayed. I'm gonna get there in just a minute, thank you.
Oh, and I was gonna say too, that, we're not in a position of other towns that collect quarterly, we collect annually on October 15th, so the goal is always to give taxpayers as much notice as possible, but we're not necessarily we're not gonna change, the date taxes are due, and it's not gonna affect us fiscally like it would a place that collected
Right, yeah,
quarterly.
that's really important.
And we can all assume they're not going down.
And that's exactly correct.
I was kind of gonna make that point as someone who works with the tax bills often. The date that they're due is October 15th. But anybody can come in, they can look at their last year's taxes and estimate what they think the taxes are gonna be this year, or at least use that as a guide, and they can always start paying before that date. They don't have to wait until they have a bill in hand.
Surprise.
But that's an option, always. Instead of coming in, paying after the 15th,
Thank you.
and then getting the penalty and interest.
Okay, great, thank you. I had hoped to be able to write an EMD report just closing out my 2 years of service, but that didn't happen this weekend, so I will do it another time.
Can I just go back to the previous, do we have an action?
No.
No action?
No, it's just
And it was really
It's
just
just
to also
information.
make sure that, if we had any grants, if we thought we were gonna get something from V-Trans or Agency of Commerce and Community Development, that we got it in.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Can I also ask a question?
Yeah.
You said there were 3 things that you were concerned about with,
No, I had 3 pieces of information. One was the
Right.
fact that we had pre-collected taxes. The second was the fact that we had $1.5 million on hand to cover town financial.
okay, because when you said you had talked to the select board about the two other, I just didn't know that those were the 3.
And the
Okay.
third one was the education rate. Yeah, thank you.
And we should just be careful about saying we have $1.5 million per
Yeah.
town tax. Those are earmarked funds, we can
They
do
are,
certain things
right.
with them, but let's.
They're budgeted.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying we have a fiscally healthy state position here, so. Peter, review of credit card limit increase. If I remember correctly, we decided that we would do a certain amount last year
Are you
and,
jumping past the Vermont State Police?
oh, I did jump because I didn't write it down.
Oh, you didn't take a new one. All right, so I have this very, very brief little spreadsheet for all of you to review, just to make it simple. So all it does is the current fiscal year budget for law enforcement services, which was with VSP this year, was budgeted at $7,000. As of the last select board warrant, we had paid $5,831.95. Without knowing it, because they do their contracts on a little different time schedule than we do our budgeting, we budgeted the same amount for fiscal year 19. The proposed contract that I received from Lieutenant French is to not exceed $6,500. As it is currently presented, it would be $6,487.05.
And nothing else has changed with the contract?
Nothing else was, the hourly rate actually went down slightly, which was predicted.
So year-to-date, 5,831 is what we've been billed so far?
That is
or-
correct.
And have they finished billing us, or do we have another quarterly,
We will likely receive one more invoice.
which will bring us up to approximately,
They have been
Over seven?
They have been averaging around 450.
a month?
No, in total per quarter. So,
What was our last contract? Was it a not to exceed 6,500? I think that's what Sheila was saying. What's our?
Yeah.
no, we will not exceed the 6,500.
Okay.
Okay, because this is,
We will actually likely be under the 6,500. The year before, we were under the 6,500.
yeah, okay.
So if you want to see it, you have the actual contract right here.
No, it's not necessary.
You're welcome to view it.
So a question, have we had complaints or appreciation of the Vermont State Police fulfillment of their duties in the last year? I'm not,
I have heard from several people that they have noticed their presence in town more than the sheriff. I have heard from one specific individual that they don't see anyone over in West Guilford. But as of the last time we communicated with them, the select board you guys had decided and requested from VSB to patrol specific areas because of concerns we had heard from residents. So they have been patrolling those areas. And since they're in town a limited number of hours a week, they can only do so much.
and how much are we getting in, that would be the highway budget, sorry, in traffic fines?
So
Just out of curiosity. It's not in this budget, right? In this statement?
It may be somewhere in revenue, but I don't think it would be pulled out as a specific traffic fund.
Yeah, it's
in
not.
the chart of accounts.
it's not.
But to me, I thought we told them it's not,
Right.
we're not
We
looking
don't
to
want-
make money, we're looking
Right.
for them to.
I understand, I just was
Yeah,
curious
yeah.
to know, I mean, I think it's a data point that we usually bring up every year, like how much we get in traffic fines.
I didn't think we did, actually.
I don't know if we.
I don't think we've ever really talked about it, except that our goal is not to collect
Yeah.
money like other towns.
Okay,
You're right, some towns we know. And I'm also just curious about the efficiency of their stops. You know, when we had the sheriff's office, they would keep the scofflaw sitting in the car for half an hour. And so I think the state police are more efficient in doing their job.
thank you.
To finish answering your question, Sheila, the two primary complaints that we have received is about speeding in Algiers Village near the new bridge. And I know that they have been placing one of their officers in the section over there. Some often in between, between Richmond's and
The fire department.
the fire department is where they've been sitting quite often. Since they've been doing that more frequently, I have not heard any concerns from residents. And then the most recent thing was conversations with both Kathy and Laura regarding
The school.
here in Guilford Center
It's the library.
and this area. And as soon as Kathy shared that with me and gave me the whole backstory that they've been observing this for a long time, I contacted Lieutenant French, and within 2 days,
You had the,
Sergeant Buckley had put the speed cart down there.
great,
So once generally takes them about a month before we get the data from that, and the select board can then decide on further action once we have the specific data on that.
So do we need a motion?
yep.
We would.
So I would like to make a motion that we renew the Vermont State Police annual contract not to exceed 6,500 for next year.
Seconded.
Miranda seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for
Sheila, could you kindly sign that and I'll fill in the details later.
Lieutenant French.
It's just putting in the address. in.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, good night.
Thanks, Danny.
Good night.
Good night.
And Peter, you're on for the credit card.
So, around this time, actually, July of last year, I had approached the select board after working with my colleagues, requested an increase in the credit limit on the town credit card. That came about because of this historical occurrence, often towards the end of the fiscal year, the way that our credit card invoices come in comparison to select board meetings, we would often have expenditures towards the end of the year that would overlap, and that was really the only time of year that the credit card limit would get pushed. Was transitioning between it. So Penny and I, before I went on vacation, Penny and I looked at this situation. So the credit card limit was increased to $3,500, and only once in the past year did we even get anywhere close to it. We got just over $2,000. So, and that's, yeah. And going back historically, most of the points that it's gotten close was at the end of the fiscal year. So I believe the request of the select board was concerned whether or not we would need to increase it again. In conversation with both Penny and Ellie, we don't see any need at this point in time to increase it. We have yet to come up against any expenditures that would warrant a need to use it for higher than that amount. We have a good relationship with them, and if we did in the future, we could, but we don't see any need to at the moment.
Thank you.
Good.
So this needs no action from us?
It does not. If you want to see the data for the past year, I have it here.
It was online, wasn't it? Oh, not from the whole
No.
thing.
So,
There was some.
thank you, Peter. Any questions? So, I just wanted to make mention of I watched the select board meeting of the 11th of June, I think it was, and I particularly noticed the Brattleboro Area Coalition's thing on addiction issues. And I happened to watch this probably the day before Richard Davis's op-ed in the Reformer, at which point, where he was talking about having been panhandled on Weatherhead Hollow Road.
Whoa.
And then later on, he noticed that he always left his car open, unlocked, and it was his glove compartment and other parts of his car had been rifled through. There was nothing in there to be taken. And so he has since, he has since taken to locking the barn, the garage, the house, the car right there. And he reported that this is not the single incident on Weatherhead Hollow Road. I know that there have been incidents like this on Tater Lane. And so I wanted to say that I thought their presentation was timely. His article was picked up on one of the Guilford Facebook pages, and people commented on their similar experiences in Guilford. And so I think this community just needs to be aware that we need to be a little more vigilant, that people are driving around looking for easy opportunities to find resources for themselves. So we just need to be mindful of the impact that the opioid epidemic can have on Guilford as well. And I'm sorry to say that.
Do we know it's related to the opioid epidemic, or is it kids doing?
It was
doing
a couple.
stupid things?
No, it was.
Okay.
I mean, I think Richard is a nurse. I think he knows. I mean, I don't think you can be 100% convinced, but I think he's.
I was just wondering whether
No, it wasn't
have an
kids
actual link to
pranksters.
say that, or whether we should just sort of say,
So it's not pranksters, and they're looking for easy to remove things that they can sell quickly. So for whatever reason. So that's all I wanted to say about that. I appreciated their time that they came and talked to us here and the services that they do, and we have that primer on what the community can do and how we might be thinking about it in the future for the town plan. So, Peter, did you tell me that we could delay the request for transferring
You could, yes.
tech funds till, okay, fine. So we'll, transfer of unused funds will table until another meeting. And Gabby, you are well prepared on the issue of the warrants.
I've looked through them all. I'll make the motion to pay the following payroll and warrants. Payroll for the week ending June 17th, 2018 in the amount of $5,480.73. Payroll for the week ending June 24th, 2018 in the amount of $8,746.40. Expense warrant 1824 in the amount of $17,454.27. Expense warrant FW 24 in the amount of $50.50. Expense warrant CC 24 in the amount of $637.50. And expense warrant MC 24 in the amount of $15,060 for a grand total of $47,429.40. And there were no really big major expenses that stood out in the expense warrant. It's really just a lot of chlorine, gravel, maintenance, repairs, general bills.
I second the motion.
Thank you. So Gabby moved, Richard seconded. I wanted to say that when I asked Penny about our outstanding bills before the end of the year, she said approximately 48,000. So with payroll and everything, 47,420 is a pretty remarkable estimation. So all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The other thing I want to say is that I think the highway, if I was looking at the status, the highway is about 70% of expended budget, but the paving hasn't been taken out of that yet, and we as a town are at about 90, I forgot the figure. This is highway, sorry. Yeah, 94%, which I think is a pretty good performance on our budget.
And
this
also
year.
wanted to remind you guys that because of Dan's foresight and noticing the cost of sand and gravel a month and a half ago, his sand shed is full for the upcoming year, and his salt shed is full, and his sand shed is over half full.
Pretty loaded.
Yeah.
Smart.
So he actually purchased ahead for the upcoming year, so we're even in a better position.
A savvy guy.
A savvy guy indeed. We have a couple of communications, Peter?
So first one is without talking to each other, Penny and I forwarded the email of the VLCT legislative alerts to all of you regarding the potential for the state shutdown regarding the state education. I have a printed out copy that Penny printed out before she knew that I sent it to you if you're interested.
Thank you.
The Guilford Recreation Commission is planning a Guilford community picnic at Fort Dummer State Park on Sunday, July 15th from 12 to 3 p.m. With the use of the event field for the community picnic.
And the swimming hole.
Yep. So I will put that notification up on the website.
So,
And the
but
different
the,
commissions are going
but
to be
the
helping
select board
to
is
provide-
responsible for appetizers
Appetizers,
at that, for contributing appetizers, and I'm just gonna say that it's my birthday, and I'm probably, I don't know if I'm gonna be there or not, but I
will
am,
not be here for.
I might be able to
But-
create some appetizers to contribute, but I would like somebody else to take the lead on this for the
I'll
select
take the
board.
lead on that.
Because you've just done 50 people, and so you can do this. Eyes closed.
150 people,
Yo.
at least.
Okay, so just ask me something and I'll do it, but I'm like,
No, that's
I'm
okay.
happy to do it, but I'm just,
No, I forget what the cemetery, maybe the cemetery commission has to donate just desserts or something like that. The final.
Makes sense.
Right.
It's a great idea
it
to
is.
pull it all together.
The final communication was from Bob Spencer at Wyndham Solid Waste to notify all the towns that last June they estimated that the closing of the MRF facility would have a net cost of $94,213 that would be spread to the participating towns. And the memo just states that the revenue of sale from recyclables, equipment, et cetera, reduced that expense actually to $70,660, so they will not be charging towns for the final quarterly payment of the MRF expense.
Oh, that's a
For which
Good
we are
news.
grateful.
And I just had one from the Conservation Commission that met this week, and I guess the Conservation Commission is working with the Planning Commission and sort of putting an FAQ mailer out to the entire, to everyone in town about the flood and fluvial erosion bylaw and events relating to that. And they were sort of trying to figure out where they could use funds, and I was wondering if we could use our FY19 communication fund, since it's a town-wide mailer of, for events and.
I
Is
would
it
think
gonna
so.
go out separate from, I thought it was gonna go into the Gazette as an insert.
I don't know about that.
I think, I'm pretty, that was
not my understanding, because they were talking about funding. So I'm happy to ask them and bring it back next time's meeting.
I just think that, I mean, when we were talking about it with the planning commission last Monday, they were talking about being happy to put it as an insert into the Gazette.
Okay, well, there were some.
Well, couldn't we say that we're supportive, if it's
If
not
they
going
need
in the
money?
Gazette, that we're supportive of taking it from the communications fund, because that's what it is, it's a town communication.
Yeah, I'd like to know how much it is, just because the communications committee has not met, and we are behind, and I need to be able to budget what we need for this year, so. The communications subcommittee. So, yeah, I mean, let's find out a little bit more about it, because if it goes into the Gazette come July 1st, we can make our contribution to the Gazette of $100, which we did vote on, and which might help alleviate some of that expense. So,
All right, I'll ask them to talk to the planning commission and get back to Peter about what the estimated cost is going to be.
thank you.
Great, thank you.
And the plan.
Yeah,
Because we have to, I mean, we also have to figure out how to answer some of those questions, because it's not
Well-
just,
I'll be walking with Susan Bonkeman at 7 a.m.
Perfect.
tomorrow morning, so I can carry that on.
That'd be awesome. And then I just had a question, when we do year end, there were several, when I sort of looked at, I forget what the percentage budget we already used, we're already in certain places at like 200% of the line item used, for example. And I was wondering, other places where I've done budgeting, again, budget's a guide. So are we going to have sort of a year-end wrap-up where if we went significantly over or significantly under, we'll just have a little note next to each one, like a spreadsheet that says why, so we can be aware of why and address any problems in the
That's a good
future?
idea.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
My quick, and I haven't looked at this last one, I looked at the 2 weeks ago, and where I saw big discrepancies were in items that were not big dollar amounts.
Right, and that might be
So,
something that doesn't matter.
But I think the idea of reviewing it makes a lot of sense, just to have a baseline.
so we do that with, as we prepare for the budget. Before we start working on the budget, we look at our performance on the past budget, and then it's actually a note, there's a column for notes on the budget worksheets. And we talk about if we went over, under, why, what did we do, like, should we move this line item? So I think that's, I think if, for people who participate in the budget workshops, that's a active conversation every year.
I don't disagree. I'm trying to think timing of that in relation to the ending the year.
I mean,
Or it's-
Sheila and I have already started with,
Already?
back in April, we already started talking about observing a number of lines that were over
Okay.
and discussing why they were over and just noting whether or not we need to make changes
Yeah.
for the upcoming year for the budget planning for those purposes.
And I think it would also inform us if we're starting to make transfers over to different accounts, right? Because we're going to have to do that. We'll have to make our year-end, motion for financial transfers, that it inform that. And I think that, I don't know, it just all seems to wrap up together.
And I will add to your question, Gabby, the fact that I've said to Peter, I want to see how the reimbursement grants work, how we take out how we account for people's time.
Yes.
Right, that's a big.
When we do
Yes,
in-kind funding, how does, where does it show up on our sheets, on our financial information that
That's
we
right.
get? Because I want to be sure that it doesn't
We're
just
taking
get
advantage of it.
lost someplace, And so I've given Peter a list of things that I want him to be looking for. If you would all like me to share that list with you.
Sure.
And if you want to add to it or something like that, I think that feel free. It's just, I think it's part of our fiscal responsibility, so, thank you. Any more communications questions? So I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session of the select board to discuss a personnel matter.
So moved.
Richard, thank you. Any second?
Second.
Miranda, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Will
So-
there be a decision?
Excuse me?
Will there be a decision?
Maybe. We are coming out of executive session at 8:20, and no action is being taken, and I would entertain a motion for adjournment at 8:20.
So moved. So second.
After you sign. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Let's see,
No,
there was
meeting
one
adjourned.
that passed me by, I know.